Marcus Dillard was 38 years old on the night of his 10th wedding anniversary when his wife sent him a text message that arrived while he was standing 2 tables behind her. The world believed Marcus was a route manager for Piedmont Freight Solutions, a mid-sized logistics firm operating out of a low-slung office park off I-85 in Charlotte, North Carolina. He drove a 5-year-old truck the color of dark clay and kept a thermos of black coffee on the passenger seat and wore steel-toed work boots to an office job, because he had come up on the floor and he had never seen a reason to change that. He arrived before his team and left after them. He knew the name of every driver on the manifest and the weight limits of every bridge on the Eastern Corridor routes. The people he worked with liked him. The people above him found him useful. Nobody looked at Marcus Dillard and thought, "This man is carrying something none of us can see." Vanessa had been his wife for 10 years and his partner for 11, and she had told him that morning over coffee that she had a client dinner that might run late. "Don't wait up," she said, not unkindly, just efficiently, the way she said most things now. He had nodded and told her he hoped it went well. He had meant it. That was the part that would take him a long time to sit with afterward. The reservation was his idea. Embers on South Tryon, the same restaurant where they had gone for their 5th anniversary and their 7th. The one with the exposed brick and the long bar, and the sommelier who still recognized them. Marcus had confirmed it himself that morning, 7:30, the good table near the back window. He had even taken his blazer to the dry cleaner on Tuesday. He was the kind of man who prepared for the things he cared about. He left the office at 5:30. He had been carrying something in his coat pocket for 3 weeks, a small velvet box from a jeweler on Providence Road, a bracelet set with her birthstone that he had driven 20 minutes out of his way to pick up on a Wednesday afternoon. He had not been able to explain to himself entirely why he felt the need to mark 10 years with something that could be held. But he had felt it, and Marcus Dillard trusted his instincts. They had never steered him wrong on the things that mattered. He wanted to walk for a while before dinner. He did that sometimes when his mind was full, set his feet in motion and let the body work out what the brain was still sorting. South Tryon in early evening had a particular quality he had always liked. The city not yet in full night. The lights sitting low and amber between the buildings. The sidewalks moving at an unhurried pace. A couple walked a dog past a flower stall. A man in a cook's apron stood in a restaurant doorway. Normal things, the world at rest. He thought about his father while he walked. Edmund Dillard had died 4 years ago, quietly, in the house in Greensboro where Marcus had grown up. In the room at the back that looked out over the yard he had kept with the same meticulous care he brought to everything he owned and everything he built. Edmund had said very little in his life that was wasted, and the thing he said most often was the thing Marcus carried like a tool he used every day. "Son," he had told him once, leaning against the side of the work truck in the afternoon heat, "the day doesn't care how you feel about it. It only cares what you did." Marcus had never found a reason to argue with that. Embers was 2 blocks north. He had 20 minutes. He was passing a stretch of the street he rarely used, a narrower block, older buildings, a wine shop, a tailor. A place with warm light in the window and a small painted sign above the door that said Claret. He glanced at it the way you glance at things that are not meant for you. And then something moved through him, quick and cold. And he slowed. She was sitting near the window at a table for 2. Vanessa, his wife. In the ivory blouse she had put on that morning, the one she wore when she wanted to look effortless. Her hair was down. She had her hand resting on the table, and the man across from her had his hand close to hers in the particular way that telegraphed everything, without requiring any confirmation. He was leaning forward. She was smiling, and it was the kind of smile Marcus had not seen directed at him in a long time. Open and warm, and completely unguarded. Marcus stopped on the sidewalk. A woman passed close enough to brush his shoulder. He did not move. He watched Vanessa reach for her phone. He watched her glance at the screen, type something brief, set it back down. 4 seconds. The way you do something that has become automatic. The way you breathe. His phone buzzed in his coat pocket. He already knew what it was going to say before he opened it. "Babe, so sorry. This dinner is running long. I may not make it to Embers by 7:30. Don't be upset with me. I'll make it up to you. Happy anniversary." He read it once. He looked through the old glass of the window. She was laughing now at something the man had said, her chin tilted up slightly, her whole face open in a way that required complete comfort, complete ease. He had no idea she had no idea he was there. Marcus lifted his phone. His hand did not shake. He noticed that the way you notice a fact about the weather. He framed the shot through the glass, her profile, the man's face, their hands near each other on the table, the 2 wine glasses nearly empty, the particular lean of 2 people who were not being careful because they believed no one was watching. He pressed the shutter twice. Then he put the phone in his pocket, turned, and walked back the way he had come. He did not rush. He walked the way he always walked, measured, unhurried, a man with somewhere to be and enough time to get there. He called Embers from the corner and canceled the reservation. He returned his blazer to the dry cleaner bag in the morning and put it back in the closet. The velvet box went into the inside pocket of his coat and stayed there. He had work to do first. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from, and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. Marcus had been with Piedmont Freight Solutions for 9 years. He had started on the loading dock in Greensboro, moved up to dispatch, transferred to Charlotte when the regional office expanded, and worked his way to route manager by the time he was 32. He was good at the work in the way that came from actually doing it, from knowing what it felt like when a manifest was wrong, when a driver called in from the side of the highway, when a client changed a delivery window at 4 a.m., and someone had to reroute 3 trucks before the morning shift. He had done all of it. He knew where things broke and why, and he knew how to hold the pieces together quietly while everyone else was still figuring out what broke. What almost nobody at Piedmont knew, and what Vanessa had known for 7 years and still somehow failed to understand, was that Marcus did not technically work for Piedmont Freight Solutions. He owned it. Not in the way that got announced. Not in the way that showed up on LinkedIn or in the company newsletter. Edmund Dillard had spent 30 years building a small but tenaciously profitable regional logistics company in the Piedmont corridor before his health began to turn, and he had placed the controlling interest of that company inside a family trust administered by an attorney in Greensboro, with Marcus as the sole beneficiary. In the year Marcus turned 31. The trust held 82% of the shares. The management firm that Marcus had installed to handle the financial architecture was quiet and excellent, and operated in exactly the way Marcus preferred things to operate, without requiring him to explain himself to anyone. He had told Vanessa about the inheritance. He had not told her about the structure of it, the scope of it, the number that the trust's last valuation had placed on the portfolio. He had tried once, 2 years into the marriage, sitting at the kitchen table with the summary documents in front of him, and she had listened for about 4 minutes before her attention moved to her phone, and he had quietly gathered the papers and decided it could wait. It had kept waiting. His father had told him something about that too, though not in those words. "Don't hand people the map to things they haven't earned the right to navigate," he had said once, looking at nothing in particular, the way he sometimes said the things that mattered most. Marcus had thought about it differently after that conversation in the wine bar window. The morning after the anniversary, he got to his desk at 6:45. The office was empty, just the blue glow of the security monitors and the low mechanical breath of the building. He sat for a long time without touching his keyboard. He was a logistics man. He believed in process. He believed in sequence, in the discipline of doing the right step before the next one, of not pulling forward on a delivery that wasn't ready for transit. What he had seen through the window of Claret was a fact, and facts had to be documented before they could be acted on. That was not coldness. That was precision. He opened the joint banking app on his phone. He had checked it before, casually, the way you glance at something you don't expect to find different. But he had not looked closely. He looked closely now. The account had been their household account for 8 years. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, the quarterly property taxes on the house off Sardis Road that they had bought together, and that he had spent 3 weekends laying new hardwood floors in, because he had wanted to do at least part of it himself. He scrolled back through 6 months of transactions. His direct deposits appeared on schedule, regular as clockwork. Vanessa's deposits were irregular, which had always tracked with the commission structure of her commercial real estate work. But there were withdrawals he did not recognize, not large ones, not the kind that announced themselves. 400 here, 750 there. A transfer to an account he did not recognize, labeled only with a string of numbers, on the 14th of 4 consecutive months. His hands didn't shake. He screenshotted each transaction. He forwarded the screenshots to a folder he labeled, simply, Review. He built the timeline on a yellow legal pad, the kind his father had always kept on his desk. Dates in the left margin, amounts in the next column. The pattern that emerged was not dramatic. It was patient. Over 18 months, the withdrawals he could not account for totaled $41,000. Money that had moved in small, quiet increments that no casual glance would catch. He turned the legal pad over and wrote one name on the back. Raymond Solis. He had seen the man's face clearly through the window glass. He was not someone Marcus knew from his world, which meant he was someone from Vanessa's. Marcus placed one call, that evening, to a man named Clifton Webb. Clifton had been his father's attorney, and was now his, a trim, unhurried man of 63, with an office on North Tryon Street, and the particular professional stillness of someone who had handled enough complicated things to know that the first rule was always to listen before you spoke. Marcus laid out what he had seen and what he had found. He said the name, Raymond Solis. Clifton listened without interrupting. When Marcus finished, there was a brief silence. "Give me a week," Clifton said. Marcus went home. He made dinner. He set the table for 2 and listened to Vanessa talk about a showing that had gone well, and a client who was difficult, and a neighborhood she thought was undervalued. He asked questions. He passed the salt. When she leaned over and kissed his cheek and said she was sorry again about the anniversary, he told her not to worry about it, that they would celebrate properly soon. She touched his face with her hand. He kept his expression exactly where it was. A man who runs freight routes knows that the most critical part of any delivery is the last mile. Anyone can load a truck. Anyone can point it in a direction. The discipline is in the final approach, in not rushing it, in not announcing your arrival before you are ready to receive the signature. Marcus Dillard had been running last miles for 20 years. He understood patience the way other men understood speed. Real power moved quietly. That was the thing his father had understood and had passed to him without ever naming it. 6 days later, Clifton called at 7 in the morning. Marcus was already at his desk, his coffee beside him, the loading dock manifest open on one screen and the joint account summary open on another. He picked up on the second ring. Raymond Solis, Clifton said, is a commercial property developer. Small operation, 2 projects in the South End, 1 in Noda. Both currently carrying significantly more debt than their projected valuations can support. He paused. He has had 2 financing partners withdraw in the last year. He is looking for a third. Marcus was quiet for a moment. What kind of looking? The kind that involves someone close to him, helping bridge a gap, Clifton said carefully. Informally. In small amounts. In a pattern that would not flag an automated review. Marcus set down his coffee. And the someone close to him, he said. I have a copy of a text exchange, Clifton said. Between Solis and a contact he refers to as V. He read 2 lines aloud. They were sufficient. Marcus thanked him. He asked Clifton to hold everything and not move without his instruction. Clifton said that was his intention. Marcus ended the call and sat for a long moment with his hands flat on the desk. The loading dock outside the window was picking up, the first trucks backing in, the morning beginning its ordinary rotation. He watched it the way he always did, with the settled attention of a man who understood that the work was the work, and that it would continue regardless of what was happening in the rest of his life. A freight manifest with wrong numbers didn't stop being wrong because you looked away from it. You corrected the manifest. You rerouted the load. You documented everything, and you moved forward. He picked up his legal pad and turned to a fresh page. There was one more stop before he was ready. His Aunt Rosalind lived 20 minutes south of Charlotte, in a house she had owned for 40 years, a yellow 2-story on a quiet street where the oak trees had grown to meet each other across the road. She had been his father's younger sister and the person Marcus had called, without quite knowing why, in the first hours after Edmund died. She had driven to Greensboro in the middle of the night and sat with him until the light came up, not talking much, just present the way she had always been, steady in the particular way of people who have already survived their own hard things. He told her everything over coffee at her kitchen table. She listened with both hands around her mug, her eyes on him, not the table, the way she always listened. When he finished, she was quiet for a while. Your father used to say, she said finally, that the people who underestimate you are doing you a favor. They tell you exactly where the gap is between what they think you are and what you actually are. That gap is where you work. Marcus looked at his coffee. She tilted her head slightly. You have everything you need. He nodded. You're not going to do anything foolish, she said. It was not a question. No, ma'am. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand once, briefly. Then she refilled his coffee and asked him whether he had eaten a real meal in the past 2 days, and he told her the truth, which was not really, and she got up and made him eggs. He drove back to Charlotte with the windows down even though it was cold. The trees along the highway were bare now, just the clean dark lines of them against the gray sky. He thought about his father. He thought about the velvet box still in his coat pocket. He thought about the 18 months of small withdrawals on a legal pad, and the text exchange Clifton had read him, and the lean of 2 people in a wine bar window who believed no one was watching. He had one more thing to find. He found it on a Saturday morning, 2 weeks after the anniversary. Vanessa had gone to a showing. He waited until her car cleared the end of the block, and then he went to the small home office off the hallway, the one she used for her client files and her commission paperwork, and the lease agreements she brought home to review. The filing cabinet was locked. He had known it was locked for a year and had not thought about it until now. He did not force it. He went to the kitchen, opened the junk drawer, and found the small key on the ring she kept for the house spare, the lockbox upstairs, and the cabinet. She had mentioned it once, a year ago, too casually for him to have noticed what was being hidden behind the casualness. The cabinet held 4 hanging folders. 3 were client files, organized the way Vanessa organized everything, by date, clean and efficient. The 4th was labeled simply personal. Inside it was a copy of a private loan agreement. Her name and Raymond Solis's name printed at the top in the format of a document that had been drafted to look informal, but was constructed carefully enough to establish terms. The loan amount was listed at $75,000. The date on the document was 14 months ago. The source of the funds was identified, in small print near the signature line, as a joint asset account. Their account. Marcus photographed every page. He locked the cabinet. He put the key back. He went to the kitchen and made himself a cup of coffee and stood at the counter and drank it slowly, watching the backyard through the glass door, the bird feeder he had installed in the spring still turning slow in the wind. Vanessa was not just having an affair. She had been financing it. She had moved money out of their shared life and into the foundation of a future she was building somewhere else, with someone else, piece by piece, in amounts small enough not to alarm and large enough to matter. $75,000 from the loan document, $41,000 from the account transfers, $116,000 total taken from the joint account he had funded every month for 8 years, routed into a man whose business was failing and whose survival apparently depended on Vanessa deciding Marcus would not look closely. He had no idea she had no idea what looking closely meant to him. He photographed the last page. He forwarded everything to Clifton. He texted 3 words, "I have it." Clifton replied within the hour, "Ready when you are." That evening Marcus sat at the dining room table after dinner and listened to Vanessa describe a neighborhood she was excited about. A development coming to the west side. Opportunity there if the timing was right. She was animated. She had good instincts about real estate, and she knew it, and she liked to think out loud about it. He had always liked that about her. He asked 2 questions about the zoning, and she answered them, pleased to be asked. She did not know he was listening for something specific. She did not know he had already listened to the recording from the previous weekend, the one his phone had captured when she had been on a call in the next room, her voice carrying through the wall the way voices did in their house, and in which she had told Raymond clearly that she needed a few more months. "You'll have it," she said. "I just need a few more months." Marcus had listened to that recording 4 times. He understood exactly what it meant. He saved it to the same encrypted folder as everything else, and went to bed and slept without difficulty. Because his father had taught him something else too. Something he had never put into words, but had demonstrated every day of the working life Marcus had watched up close. A man who has done his preparation can afford to rest. He had told Vanessa a week ago that he wanted to have a proper dinner at home on Saturday. Just the 2 of them. He had said it simply, without ceremony, and she had looked at him for a fraction of a second with something he now recognized as calculation before she smiled and said that sounded wonderful. He made her favorite. Braised short ribs, roasted sweet potatoes, the green salad with the lemon dressing she had shown him how to make in their 2nd year of marriage, in the kitchen of their first apartment, laughing because he had put in too much garlic, and neither of them cared. The table was set, candles in the center, the good wine glasses, the ones they had received as a wedding gift, and used only when something warranted it. The dining room was warm, and the house smelled like the food, and Marcus stood in the kitchen for a moment before he brought the plates to the table, and he let himself feel, for just one moment, the full weight of the decade they had built in this space. Then he picked up the plates and carried them out. She was dressed nicely. She had put on the earrings he had given her for her birthday 3 years ago, small gold drops, the kind she saved. He noticed that. They talked through the first half of the meal the way they always had, easily, with the practiced fluency of two people who knew each other's rhythms. She asked about a driver who had been having trouble with the Charlotte-Raleigh run. He asked about the showing she had on Thursday. She poured the wine. He told a story about something that had happened at the loading dock that morning that was genuinely funny, and she laughed. And for a moment it was just two people at a table they had chosen together, in a house they had built together, on an ordinary Saturday. Then Marcus stood and went to the kitchen counter. He came back with a manila folder. Then a second. He set one in front of Vanessa and kept the second in his hands and sat back down. She looked at the folder. She did not touch it. "What is this?" Her voice was careful, the edges of it very slightly controlled. "Open it," he said. She opened it slowly. The joint account transfer records were on top, printed clean. 18 months of withdrawals highlighted in yellow, the unknown account number appearing at regular intervals like a signature. Behind that, the photographs of the loan agreement from her filing cabinet. Behind that, a one-page summary Clifton had prepared, dates and amounts aligned in a column, the total at the bottom. $116,400, Marcus said quietly, give or take. Vanessa's face was doing something complicated. Her hand rested flat on the folder. She did not look up. "That's money from our account," he said. "Money I put into our account every month for 8 years. Routed to a man named Raymond Solis, whose business is failing, and who has been your project for the past 14 months. She looked up then. Her eyes were wet. "Marcus," she said. He waited. "It wasn't what you think," she started. He opened the second folder and placed a single page in front of her. She looked at it. It was the transcript of the recorded call, her voice, Raymond's name. "I just need a few more months." Her mouth closed. "Clifton has the original recording," Marcus said. "The account transfers are documented. The loan agreement is documented." He paused. "What you were building with Raymond, he built it with our money. What you were taking from this marriage, you were taking from someone who had not done a single thing to earn that from him." The candles between them burned without moving. Marcus kept his voice exactly level, the way it always was when he was certain of what he was saying. She tried. He would give her that. She said his name twice more. She said she had been confused, that things had gotten complicated, that she had not intended for it to go this far. Her eyes filled and 2 tears ran, and she let them, not dabbing at them, letting them do the work she needed them to do. He watched her. Clifton appeared at the door at 8 o'clock, as arranged. He stepped in quietly, set his own folder on the table beside Vanessa's wine glass without ceremony, and stood with his hands clasped. He looked at Vanessa the way he looked at everyone, with the specific professional courtesy of a man who had no personal interest in the outcome beyond the correct one. "The fraud complaint is already filed," Clifton said. "The account holds are in place pending division. The loan document you signed constitutes a unilateral disbursement of joint marital assets without consent, which carries its own legal consequences separate from the divorce proceedings." He paused. "My recommendation is that you retain counsel as soon as possible." Vanessa looked at Marcus. She had stopped crying. Something else had moved into her expression. something harder and clearer, the thing underneath the performance. "You planned this," she said. "All of it." Marcus looked back at her. "I am not angry," he said. He said it without heat, without irony, without anything but the plain truth of it. "I stopped being angry somewhere around the 3rd week, when I understood what I was actually looking at. What I am is done. And those are different things." She had no idea, even then, what it cost him to say it that simply. Clifton gathered the folders, and Marcus stood and walked to the door and held it open, and Vanessa took her coat from the chair where she had laid it when she arrived, full of anticipation, for a nice dinner. And she walked past him without speaking, and he closed the door behind her, and stood in the quiet of the front hallway, and listened to her car back out of the driveway. The candles were still burning in the dining room. He went in and blew them out, one at a time. 10 months passed. The paperwork moved through its stages with the efficient indifference of legal processes, which do not hurry for anyone but which do, eventually, resolve. The house off Sardis Road stayed in Marcus's name. The joint accounts were divided. Vanessa did not contest the asset claims once Clifton had laid out the full picture of what contesting them would cost her. Raymond Solis's South End project collapsed in the spring. 2 of his financing partners withdrew after a due diligence review that turned up the irregular loan in his capitalization structure. The same loan that was now part of a civil matter attached to Vanessa's name. The Noda property sold at a loss to cover outstanding debt. Solis relocated to a smaller office in Concord and listed himself on his new website as a consultant. The word in the commercial real estate community, as it came back to Marcus third hand through a contractor he used, was brief and not surprised. Vanessa took a leasing agent position with a smaller residential firm in Ballantyne. The commercial work had dried up in Charlotte quickly, the way work does in a small enough professional world when the wrong kind of paperwork starts moving through it. She was good at what she did. She would land somewhere. Marcus did not spend time on this. He noted it, the way he noted a route that had been rerouted successfully, and moved on. On a Wednesday evening in November, Marcus was in the garage he had spent the summer converting into a proper workshop. New shelving. A proper workbench. The good lighting his father had always said you couldn't work without. He was refinishing a side table he had found at an estate sale. Something solid and old that had been painted over and deserved better. The grain was coming back under his hands, the original wood patient beneath all those years of paint, waiting to be found. His phone was on the bench beside him. A message came in from a woman named Patricia, someone he had met at a freight industry conference in October. They had talked for 20 minutes about cold chain logistics, and then for another 40 about nothing in particular, and she had laughed at something he said in a way that was genuine and unperformed. They had been texting, casually, the way 2 people test whether a thing is real. She had sent a photo of the view from her back porch, just a yard and some trees, and the last of the November light. He wiped his hands on a cloth and picked up the phone and looked at the photo for a moment. Then he typed back, "That's a good kind of light." She replied, "It is. You would know." He set the phone down and picked up the sanding block and went back to the table. The wood was warm under his palms. The grain ran straight and clean, the way good wood does when it has not been rushed, when it has been given the time it needed. You couldn't hurry it. You could only do the work. His father had known that. "The day doesn't care how you feel about it," Edmund Dillard had said, leaning against the side of the work truck in the afternoon heat, a lifetime ago and also yesterday. "It only cares what you did." Marcus ran the sanding block along the grain, one slow pass, then another. The garage smelled like sawdust and mineral oil. Outside, Charlotte settled into its November night. a car passed on the street. A dog barked once and went quiet. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.